I didn't. I was gonna do the intro, but I don't think we have much to talk about on the show. Unfortunately, yeah, I promised you some extra things, but some things came up, and life really throws you a curveball. Uh, let's just say that my financial responsibilities got a lot bigger, and there seems to be a deficit of funds. So I'm trying to make things kind of, you know, even out the playing field. But enough about my stuff. I don't need handouts or donations. Anyway, so what we're going to talk about is kind of like what had happened over the New Year's Christmas break, and there were some things that happened, and there's been a lot. There were some things that happened today, and we'll get to that. But there has been politics wise, it's been kind of stagnant. There was a new bill introduced, which would require. It's more along the lines of what Ryan Greaves is doing with the FAA safe FAA thing, where we're going to have a mandatory reporting bill, which elaborates on what is already, I believe, law now. It just expands on what they are, and I believe that there's going to be some relay between the FAA, the pilot, and Aero, which you think would have already been happening, because of what is being said on the Aero website, where they do encourage civilians, but they need to be government civilian contractors wait. Maybe I answered my own questions. No, that's not true. No, they were encouraged. I think believe on that. They do have people who are registered or who do have to report to the FAA to report at Aero. Sean Kirkpatrick is out. We don't know who is new in Aero. What else happened? Lou Elizondo book seems to be delayed a little bit. He's writing. I don't. If for those of you who don't know who Lou Elizondo is, he used to be part of. I believe it was ATIP, which was the previous incarnation of Arrow. There's his book is going was approved by Dopser, but they did some more redactions. So what Lou Elizondo is going to do is he's going to publish the book with the redactions blacked out as though you were reading like a classified book. Unfortunately, because of Lou's position and I really don't know what's going on with his life, but I suspect, once you leave the intelligence community, you really just don't leave. Same thing happens in my job in some of the sectors. You do work as a consultant and you still are on the payroll. So, but I'm not saying that that's what he is, but I suspect that there are reasons, reasons other than going to jail for releasing these secrets. But it's going to be interesting seeing what is redacted. I doubt we're going to get any clue about what is redacted, why it's redacted. We're not getting any cliff notes about the redactions. So we're just going to see it as is, face value. I wish that they would give us metaphors or some sort of like little breadcrumb trails. But that's certainly not what we're going to be seeing in the revisitation in Lou Elizondo's story. And I really don't know what his book is going to be about. To be honest, it's kind of close to me. And it looks like Nizor just joined in. Hey, Nizor, we're going to be doing like a short show. It's going to be a half an hour. We're doing freestyle. I didn't write any show notes. Can you hear us, Nizar? Yeah. Hey.
I can hear you. I'm adjusting to my new time zone. Actually, I was an hour behind. Uh, so yeah, short free flow works great.
Oh, it looks like all of our listeners just dropped out. That's great.
Oh man, come on.
Yeah, I know. Whatever. Partially. I mostly do this show for myself. And then it's kind of selfish, but I do it so I don't go nuts with these thoughts. But I do it to inform the public about what edge that I have. With my involvement. With activism and little tidbits that I get here and there. I know more than the average bear, but I don't know everything, and I'm definitely not far from the UFO community. In fact, there are people within the UFO Twitter that know like a million times more than I do. We did the who did something. David Grush did a talk in New York, kind of about the timeline, about stuff that has happened. I'm not. I'm just going to give you the cliff notes. It's probably everything that you've heard David Grush say before. But the only thing that was included was some tidbits, which I'll get to, and about how how should I say this? There's probably going to, in this election, which has probably never happened in any other election, whether it be big or small, there will be language in the debates about or who's voted on based on this aspect of the who's going to be our political candidate, and that was coming from them. Me personally, I don't want to sell you guys short. I don't want to sell the audience short, right? But I'm going to be the negative Nancy, and I kind of give it like a grain of salt that this is going to be the deciding issue. I believe it will be in there. It has happened in some of these debates, but I'm not sure. I've been listening to people the last few weeks, and they seem to be overly enthusiastic um, about this year, and everything seems to be, we never been in this zone. Yeah, we never actually been in this position, law wise or government wise, with this much discussion about UFO and non-human intelligence. We're in the unknown zone. Saying that, I believe we're in a better position than we were, but don't forget that like there were some things going on in the 60s and the 50s that were similar, but not to this extent, and they kind of just made it go away. But we live in a digital age where it's harder to suppress the information. That there is a big difference there. The only thing that David Grush had talked about in that New York conference was he did include, I believe, I'm not sure if it's him personally or Danny Sheenan's story, but he did talk about a UFO where it was only 40 feet in diameter and was producing around a terawatt of of energy. And when the whoever the military guy went inside, or whoever was from the recovery thing, when they went inside, it was the size of a football field, and the disorientation because of the was making the pilot nauseous, and there seemed to be some weird time delay too, where 15 minutes had passed for the a soldier, but the 4 hours had gone by when he was outside, and they also were trying to tear this thing apart, and they got a rig, pulled it out, and a piece fell out of it like a pie slice. So I'm not sure what to make of it. That definitely sounds like Danny Sheenan's story from the Daily Mail from UK. That doesn't sound like David Grush, but I can't say either it is some new information or it wasn't. Definitely sounds, knowing David Grush and his background, he gives these little tidbits of information, and they're not coming from his sandbox. That we will see in a future publication, that he's trying to get approved through Dopser. But just like with Lou, there seems to be some holdup about some information, and his op-ed is not going to be coming out this month. It's going to be coming out late February, apparently. And I do hope that it goes somewhere. But we had the biggest whistleblower in UFO history. Arguably, there was Bob Lazar, but this one was included with a hearing with Congress. So we got that. And other than that, I don't know. I'm pretty much let's. That's pretty much all the news that I have. I don't know. What do you guys want to talk about?
Oh no, it's just it's like everything's delayed. With like the budget package, it's just like you're in limbo right now. You're not getting much of anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have
The
that.
the most recent exciting thing I've seen with interdimensional or UFO type of scenarios, the proposed 10-foot aliens in Miami, but is that realistic based on actual perception, or is that more blue beam propaganda?
Yeah, that one I'm not sure of, and I I didn't really get too far in depth. I didn't go into the Reddit. I didn't get to the Reddit crew about that. And my own personal thought, and I hate to say this, it's probably clout because the video that was shown of the top-down view of that person or whatever the police were seeing. If you look at a side by side of the alien from Aliens, it definitely has some resemblance to that, and I think it was all clout because, you have thousands of, not thousands, but possibly a couple hundred people, in a mall. All the cops have badge have the vest things, and the police departments don't always release that shit. But what I'm saying is there was probably enough people there that somebody should have said saw something, and the only thing we have is like a blurry video to go off of. And Newsweek picked it up, and it went ballistic after that. My personal thoughts, it's probably not true, but I could be wrong. You know, what do you guys think?
Uh, I'm leery of that one. And then this whole problem of not constantly getting grainy videos, and I'm just not. I'm not saying it doesn't happen with phones, and even, but it just in this day and age we should be getting clearer photos,
Exactly.
just all the way around, and we're not getting that. That's
The
what strikes me as kind of weird.
the only
Yeah,
thing. Go ahead.
I agree. If we're talking about a mall that's occupied with a bunch of people from, I mean, just plainly put, the people who are walking in malls today are under 35. I mean, if we just start there, they're glued to the phone. They're gonna stream everything. It doesn't matter. The fact that we don't have more footage to me is a bigger issue than the couple little blurry images that we do have.
Yeah, yeah. Most likely, it was what the cops said. It was. It was a bunch of kids throwing fireworks at each other in a mall, and then it busted out into a fight. You know that. The same thing happened here. In a mall near me. Where teenagers were having some sort of a dispute, and then they call their homies, and the next thing you know, there's 100 kids beating the fuck out of each other, and half of LAPD shows up. That's what happened here. I suspect the same thing happened there. I don't know. It's kind of weird because like if you look at the videos that I did see going around, where there was clear video of the from a rooftop seeing the police showing up, and then the only video that shows the alien is the blurry one. It's like it's quite convenient, you know.
Yeah, like what else is there going on in that area? Because there was an overwhelming amount of enforcement presence, and there's been school shootings that did not solicitate that many active on-duty participants in an area. It just I find it really odd that one, there was so much presence, and two, there's so little footage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, I'm looking for better disclosure, uh, or better events.
The thing
You know, maybe
is,
that Marine one, out. I guess that's like a year ago, probably now. That was a good one, but mm, few and
yeah,
far between.
yeah, that's what I would like to see is disclosure. But the issue we have, the the reason I don't think we're going to get 100% disclosure, and I hate to be the negative Nancy here, we might get if a whistleblower doesn't come through, and if it doesn't come from an internal leak, with some physical proof or some videos or whatever, we will get some sort of disclosure. But if 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 it doesn't, how should I say this? If everything came out, what I think is behind the scenes, it would destroy the integrity of the United States government, and we would the population would quickly know that they've been lied to for 80 years. The secret control group is pulling the strings on a lot of aspects on our life. Not everyone, but a lot of them, and we have a rogue element of the government that doesn't report to anybody but pulls a lot of the strings, and some of them aren't even part of the government, and they are making decisions in our government, and paying lobbyists to make politicians vote on whatever the hell they want inside of their favor in regards to this military industrial complex, which would make the integrity of America look like a sham. And our commander in chief, since he has no control over it, would look like a pansy. Be honest. And it'd be a big rug pull. That's why I don't think we're going to get 100% disclosure. But it's the what is coming out lately has been overwhelming, especially with this new TMZ, especially with this TMZ special with Jeremy Corbell. Well, it wasn't especially, but Jeremy has been pumping out a lot of stuff along with George Knapp, and now they have a new 3-part documentary. You can get it on Tubi, tubi.com in the United States, and it's free. It's called the TMZ UFO Revolution, and I have yet to watch it, but I'm going to today. And there was a lot of footage. Like we now have this UFO jellyfish, the jellyfish UFO video along that was filmed in infrared. People are saying it's night vision, but it definitely looks like infrared. It looks very fucking bizarre, and was invisible. And I believe at one point this jellyfish UFO goes into the water and shoots out and disappears. And there are other things that are in this video, in that video, that I've seen from screenshots, like like some of the stuff we see in Mexico, like the starfish UFOs, or I don't even know what to fucking call them, puff spike balls, that are only seen when you are viewing using military technology and certain bandwidths of light that they're looking in night vision or infrared, ultra. I'm not sure if the military uses ultraviolet cams, but I know NASA does. But I don't know. Kind of rambling here. But I don't really know. I don't know what disclosure looks like. For me, disclosure would be, and I'm kind of a minimalist. For me, disclosure would be the acknowledgement that we're not alone and something is visiting this planet. That would work for me, you know. And I know that is Pandora's box, but the evidence is kind of overwhelming, and it's and being you know, being in, studying this stuff for years, I know more than the average Joe, but the average population still stigmatizes this as like crackpots and schizos. But I've had my own personal sightings, and I definitely know this is a real phenomenon. I know what I've seen, and my eyes are not deceiving me, and I know what I've saw.
Yeah, I think the overlying inquisition is not if we are alone at this point, but if uh, the other things that are here with us are more interplanetary or interdimensional. There was just another new release about a portal coming open from the what was it, the X particle found from the recent acceleration at CERN. And is it every time they turn that thing on, do we just legitimately shift into another parallel dimension? Or uh, has it already gone to a fluidity where we are constantly shifting between multiple dimensions simultaneously? And are we just individuals experiencing a singularity in our own perspective, or are we actually multi-dimensional beings experiencing a simultaneous revelation throughout multiple dimensions at the same time? And like, how often is it you come across a person that can even comprehend the first part of what is said? Let alone keep up with, where we're at with the progression of the concept, and how much is ignored compared to, how much can actually be perceived.
Well, I heard, I've been. It's weird you're talking about that. I was talking to my best friend like about that all yesterday, like that kind of talk. But I heard something. The CERN thing, I'm like 50-50 on it. Like I know a lot about physics, and I do know that the polydimensional real or the multiverse is possible, but the last the last experiment we had with the Higgs boson particle with the 220 GeV charge that it had was saying otherwise. But I don't I don't put like I say, I don't put that measurement in a 100% certainty, because we have a lot of problems with our physics in the micro and the macro, and we don't completely understand what the fuck is going on. And I think, what you're touching on is that we're at the point where our physics are isn't our physics understanding is not explaining the mysteries that make up our universe. But I did hear something very, very intelligent recently from Tiny Claus on his last podcast that I listened to yesterday, where the your brain, and I'm very familiar with consciousness studies, and it being on your brain might actually be working on the quantum level. It's probably true, considering that it's chemical electric, but very similar to what we have going on in microprocessors with your neurons. Similar, but not the same, because neurons are a little more advanced, where they can move and shift their connections. They're a little more self-aware, chemically wise, with chemical signaling. But there, he had said that our mind is probably we have a holographic processor, which is probably true with the way the memories are being stored, and the information that is your brain is interpreting. What's it called? your brain is interpreting the universe through this processor, and it's quite possible that the cosmic glue, or the instruction set on the universe, because it's interpreting everything that we see in our daily life, be it photons or thermal radiation or whatever it is processing, and it has an instruction set on how the universe acts or is put together. It's quite possible that it might actually be somewhere in our minds about how the universe is constructed, and it might. I've heard from many physicists that consciousness might be the cosmic glue that explains that might have to explain these paradoxes that we have when our physics break down, because there are problems with singularities. The problem with the singularity, and I believe Einstein was wrong, and so do other people in the physics field, because when you have in something that is infinitely small, in like we got the center of a black hole, your numbers are wrong, which means that the calculation is wrong. So what we might be what I'm actually saying is that we don't know shit, and we're trying to explain away things that we don't quite understand because we can't measure it. I think that physics needs to start looking in other avenues, because CERN right now, their big thing is just to build a larger hadron collider, and that's what they're doing right now, and they're gonna start ramping that up, and I believe 2027 they're supposed to be ready for another huge experiment. But I believe that there comes a point, with the limitations of what we can do. I don't think that CERN's going to find out a hell of a lot more. They might find some more smaller particles, than what that put the Higgs boson particle or connect to it. But I believe once we start smashing things smaller and smaller and smaller, we're just going to find smaller and smaller things, and there's going to be a limit on what we can and can't find. So the universe has a lot of mysteries, but I truly believe deep down somewhere. Call it a sixth sense, that the cosmic glue that puts the universe together is consciousness. Some people think it's some people think it is electrostatic or microgravitational forces that keep the atoms together. But if you get to the electron beam experiment, where the electrons arrange themselves and don't arrange themselves, whether they're measured or not, is like a weird paradox. And it seems to me that it's quite possible that matter might exist in a quasi they call it superposition, but it's a probability position when it's not observed.
Yeah, that goes back to the, I guess that's the physics argument for whether the bear shits in the woods. If the bear shits in the woods, does anybody, did it really happen? If nobody notices it, did it really happen?
Yeah, I mean, these are really picked up on a big thing, and
I don't know. That consciousness argument. There needs to be, if you're gonna, it's not. In order to view these things, you have to be conscious to make the measurements and be aware and be able to view your surroundings and comprehend it and all. It just, to me, that just doesn't mean that you're affecting the reality around you. You do in the human sense, in the the social nature of our existence as a human, but does that affect a physical reality, actual physics? I tend to think it doesn't. I just, you notice these things, but you don't interfere, or the fact that you're there watching it doesn't change it. I mean, that argument goes on, but I personally just can't see it.
Yeah.
Now it does, like when you're making a measurement, when you're entering or adding energy into something that you're trying to measure, of course you affect it. There's almost no way to do that, whether you're using light or electron beam or whatever it is. You then affect whatever you're looking at in the measurement, but that's for a different reason. That's not a consciousness. That's a physical. There's a physical reason that happens.
Yeah, and there's also other arguments that I know that could explain away the beam experiment where we were. Not sure if you're familiar with the how they were able to place an atom of some element, and they were able to hold it in a stasis by lasers, and they were able to measure gravity. You know how, like, I am made of matter, and I do emit, because I do bend space around me. I do have some sort of gravitational force, and they were able to measure gravitational forces. Even people even just getting near the experiment, was like 1 meter was like the Goldilocks zone where you would be affecting this atom around you. So there is a possibility that electrons being shot out could be affected by the measuring devices via just being there, and having a slight gravitational force. But I am not the physics expert, but that's another avenue. There are people that say that just the measuring devices are causing the effect, but it's odd how physics and science just don't have answers for this. Just like these odd paradoxes, like Nieser was kind of getting onto. We have the Mandela effect shit, and I swear to God, I actually remember some of the shit that was in I actually remember shit being different, and I actually didn't believe in the Mandela effect till somebody had told me about some things that had happened. And they say it is a problem with our memory and whatever, but polydimensional reality theory might actually be a real thing, and people might actually have memories of an alternate timeline. And that goes into like weird things about, like we were talking before, Alamo, at one point, where about how quantum entanglement might be going on a daily basis, because we are constantly getting entangled with other things. We might actually be connected to these polydimensional realities.
Yeah, it would seem like we're all quantum entangled from the Big Bang. I mean, if it was a quantum soup.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, then everything's connected in some way there.
There is a new theory going on that the Big Bang might have not originated in our reality, and we might be one of those side explosions from the main one, and it might have happened in another parallel universe.
Yeah, you don't know how many universes could have been created out of an explosion like that.
Which would make more sense.
If it's, yeah, I mean, it's, at that level, I mean, who knows? It's just.
We wouldn't even, like, if it happened in another universe, we wouldn't even know. It might have not even started out. It might have actually, like our universe started out like a tiny little pinprick, but what was behind it might have been the size of the universe. Like if it was like in another universe or several universes.
Well, yeah, the universe we know didn't exist because all the forces didn't even exist. At those temperatures and pressure and everything, there was no gravity, there was no electromagnetism, there wasn't much of anything except this quantum state.
Hey.
It was only after it started, expanding and cooling, and then you started to see, the actual physical properties that we recognize, even start to exist. So, and then who knows, times.
If we look at it like within the concept of Schrodinger cat, and we're all inside our own little boxes, which, in some ways we exist in our own worlds with our own experience and our own attention. and the particularities of our own existence. In some ways, we are in our own little box, and we're all just contemplating what's outside of our little box. Have we ever lived at all? Or are we just waiting for something else to open up the box to find out that, we're just, we're just dead, or just part of the cosmic goo that just continues to swirl. I mean, this existential perception is just, what we make of it. As Tyler said, we've got our own magnetism, we've got our own, gravity that things move around and we move through. But uh, who's to say that, we're not all in our own relative box per se, contemplating whether we choose to exist or not within the fabric of how others perceive reality and how we affect them. And, do we only exist as long as we affect others, or do we exist even if we're alone in the woods taking a shit?
Oh, that's a pickle. Like you need to really read a lot of God, I was because I have a background in occult. I'm not sure you do too. I'm not sure if you've read some of the Kabbalah studies, but a lot of them touch on that, where they say that these are from some of the ancient Kabbalah studies, more along the lines of the more mysticism part, mysticism meditation stuff. But they used to say that the universe that you exist in is everything that you can see in a circle. That is your universe, and anything beyond that doesn't exist. And once you come into another light, another conscious being, is that when your two universes interact? But essentially, you are in your own realm with everything that you see around you. Me living in a city that's, I'm probably bumping into somebody else's thing. But if you think about it like if you think about it like smaller wise, within our own bodies, in our sensory input, like I'm experiencing a different reality because of my thought patterns and my eyesight and a different makeup genetically than you are. So I am essentially experiencing a different reality than you are. Even if we're seeing the same thing, but we're not interpreting it the same. So essentially, we are having a different experience. So,
Oh yeah, but now I mean, as far as like for me, like the true physics of it, I mean, there are different realities because it depends. It goes back to your reference frame. If you're not moving, you have a certain reference frame. But then once you start moving, and then the faster and faster you move, you get the time dilation, length contraction. So actual reality does change, depending on how fast you're moving.
yeah, that's where the
So that's your
quantum.
clue. Yeah, I mean, are there different realities? You bet there are.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing with that I'm thinking that these quantum leaps that humanity has to get over. I think that you know, for us to, get where this technology is, there's some sort of boundary that we have to cross over to play around with the aspects of the physical aspects of a reality, like warping and bending space and stuff. But I think that we need to learn as or revise some technology where we can, have this terawatt, which is more than all we produce in all of the more energy than we produce in all of the world. But I'm just saying that it's quite possible that we might be at the cusp of where that is. I just don't know humanity's going to get there, you know.
I mean, yeah, we see what we see, and then you get like these MH370 videos where it's just like, well, wait a minute, that looks like technology that's 500 years in the future to me. I mean, it's like, if your Pentagon has something that can do that, it just doesn't seem to gel with the reality that we're living in. That just seems too advanced.
Oh yeah.
It's
Look,
just,
if you look what was just said through the lens of micro versus macro, and analyze that through the concept of, I mean, r- theories of like the double slit experiment, and we look at attention versus will. I mean, yes, we all do live essentially in our own independent dimensions, and when we interact with each other, they overlap per se. And once we acknowledge this, that's when things get real. And at that point, I think most people just shut off because they're in a base of repetition, of complacency, of compliance, of comfort, where they want things to be a certain way every day. But the simple aspect is, every time we breathe in oxygen, and it takes energy to convert that oxygen into carbon dioxide. Is It's what we exhaled, and that chemical change, that inaction of creating change, even with our breath. And I mean, you can carry that forward with like the vibration of energy every time we make a simple step to walk down the street or toward a car. And we add focus and intent into that. I think at those junctures, we realize if we're going to calculate all the variables of energy, we're far beyond what we even consider like the minimal amount of energy it takes to even, do the simplest of things. And they're trying to isolate that energy through means of like smashing atoms at high speed. But a sneeze goes what, like 187 miles an hour, supposedly. And when we take a sharp breath, or when we take a yawn, we have to realize that there is an elemental change occurring, and these changes occur with, I mean, just the basic essence of our being, whether we're isolated in our own little boxes or interacting with other people isolated in our own little boxes. And this energy exchange is far beyond anything we can even comprehend to calculate. So most people just scream at a football game because it's easy and it's agreed upon. But if we look at the force of magnitude of the power of the energy that's agreed upon when somebody scores a goal, I mean, if you just take and you capture the concept of the energy when somebody scores a goal, whether it's cheering for it or being upset that your team got scored on. I mean, just those dynamics alone, if they were focused with intent, would be enough to shift multiple realities simultaneously. And we just look past them like it's commonplace, like it's nothing. And we have all these big conversations about these slight adjustments of what could be or what would be. And I think we haven't even begun to understand how to even tap in to the slightest little things while we waste so much.
Oh yeah, you what you're tapping into, I totally understand what you're saying. There's a theory that that there's more energy in a cubic foot of space of anywhere in this universe. Let's say dirt, space, or water. There's enough energy in there, to make 10 Hiroshima bombs. We just don't know how at this point to access it. But what you were getting on, there's been experiments that have been done in the past one from Purdue with the quantum egg experiments, and there was a couple done from God, one of the ex astronauts, and another one from Art Bell. Art Bell one was kind of weird, where he had gotten all of his listeners to concentrate on, and he had done this multiple times, where he asked his listeners to concentrate on a rainstorm in a specific city in Texas, and there was nothing in the forecast for rain, and it flooded. And they did this a couple of times, and Art Bell, kind of backed off. The quantum egg experiment is kind of a little weird, where they have these random number generators that generate random numbers, and they call them quantum eggs because they are isolated in a Faraday cage, where they are not influenced by anything chemical, electro, or radiation wise. And the data is analyzed afterwards. And there was some really weird stuff that had happened, and this experiment was running for about 11 or 12 years. And they had these eggs all over the United States. And when there was a massive event about 2 hours before, these quantum eggs, or these random number generators, were not generating random numbers. They were all generating the same numbers. You might call that precognition, or whatever, but that I'm not sure. It has to do something. I truly believe that there is some sort of correlation with traumatic events, consciousness, or whatever, or precognition, because before 9/11 there was these random number generators were not generating random numbers, and that wasn't the only. There was like a couple dozen events, mass casualties, where the same stuff had happened. It was always so many minutes, on average anywhere between 2 hours to 15 minutes before these things were not generating random numbers. Are
Yeah,
we?
yeah, whatever that effect is, I don't understand it. If there is some mental effect that can affect something like on an electron or a quantum basis, I mean, maybe there is. I mean, like the studies you're talking about, that seem to indicate that. But at least for me, if you want to like change your reality, you can do that because you're in the physical world. You're well, you hear that, you're whether it was some song, or you hear it said that like you're a spirit in the material world. Well, that's how you can affect your reality, because you're in a material world. You can affect that. If you're an artist, or you create something, that's affecting your reality
There's some
physically.
weird. There's some weird. Or maybe it's not just like one consciousness. You have to have multiple people, concentrating on the same. There's some weird stuff. They say in religion. I'm not a religious person. Say that, or two or more are gathered, your God will listen. Your God can hear you. What if it takes that extra energy to for something to manifest? I'm not saying that there's. I'm not saying that
Well,
God's real or not, or whatever. That's not the basis of this show. I personally believe that there is a creator, and I can tell you one thing about being in the cult. And you've seen as much as I do. You've seen. I can say this. I can say this with. I don't know. I can say this. I know that there are things out there that don't make any sense, and the stories that you were told. There are things that go bump in the night, and there are things, and there are. I have seen proof that there are things that within biblical scriptures that do exist. What I'm saying is that maybe, the key might be that, where people talk about unity, and getting together. And I heard this from the Varginha case, when the alien died, where the alien was talking to the doctor, and the alien was talking about that you don't know that you are a more powerful species than yada yada yada. If you guys could just get together, you guys could heal, you guys could rebuild the world, all by concentrating. That might be the key. But we are such a primitive species. We want to kill each other, based on what football team you have, politics. We are a tribal species, and unfortunately, we have to evolve mentally to get to there if that's how we're going to get off this rock and start to talk to our galactic neighbors, which I don't see happening anytime soon. I actually kind of picture the world going out in a big bang.
Yeah, it's um. Damn, I had something to say. I forgot what the. At the same, yeah, it's just by what you do. Oh, okay. Here's what it was. You were going back to working as a collective. Well, you see that in the social relationships. You can work as a group or or uh, or a county or a state. Or a country. I mean, you get different levels of activity and cooperation together. You can create certain things. Um,
Yeah.
that's true. I mean, I just
I mean, look at the
you
Alaskan
can you
pipeline.
can
That thing
yeah,
was
you
built in 18
can
months.
modify your world to an extent. Well, you live in a house. You got heating, air, heating, cooling, water. That's your environment. That's what happens with working within a city and having those kind of utilities available and so forth. But it changes your life, versus not having running water or
Yeah.
live on a farm. And but yeah, people have. I mean, there are different, there are different experiences, different realities out there. I've always been amazed, like some people seem to have like charmed lives versus other folks seem to have, like violent, geez, a lot of drama. I mean, you see different certain themes that come around. It's just
Yeah,
the
I
things you
adore.
do, the way you think, it all makes a difference, man. It does.
Yeah, I am actually kind of jealous of people that have those kind of like, charmed lives. You know what I mean? My life
Yeah.
has been one extreme up and down ever since I was a child. But growing up in a broken home, so
Mm.
with addiction being prevalent everywhere. So you can only
Yeah.
imagine. You can only imagine how much trauma I have and how I even manage. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah. I mean,
I've
the
always had.
upbringing, the home life. I mean, it all makes a difference. In the type of experience that you have, in the type of life that you have.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about perception based on, just our personal perspective. We can only perceive things through our own lens, and our lens is built by our experience, and not just, a stagnant experience, but have choose how we have chosen to evolve through our independent experience. How we essentially, to use the same metaphor, how we decorate our own little box, and when we let somebody in that box, that's, either where the danger zone becomes more prevalent, or where, love expands, when you're, in that flow, when you're vibing with another entity here physically and realistically, that changes everything. But the experience of staying in your own box through the trauma, and blocking it all out, because whatever people are rooting for sports, when you're wondering why, you know just a small portion of those funds aren't solving starvation. That definitely makes the relative difference between, independent personal eh, paths, and how we can even potentially expand. Because yeah, it takes multiple elements to cause a reaction. If we look at, the periodic table of elements, or any type of molecular fusion or any acidic reaction. It takes multiple things in tandem to create it, anything, whether it's baking soda and vinegar, causing the fizz. You got a box of baking soda on one end, you got a box of vinegar on the other, and if they don't ever interact, you don't have that chemical reaction. So, that creation never exists, which is, why I go back to, how we all breathe, how we all, take in some of our environment and send out what supports our environment. And I think ultimately what it comes down to is that collective resonance is that we all take and add to, uh, not only our own existence, but the existence of everything else, regardless if we understand it or not. These are just things that we understand. Like we can only see up to the, what is it, the ultraviolet scope, through the prism that we can see with our own eyes or experience with our own intent or understanding. And there is literally an unlimited amount beyond those spectrums we can uh, even contemplate because we can only see so much. So we have the known, the unknown, and the unknowable. And when people, venture into the unknown and start to make some of that known, only then can we even come close to contemplating, uh, the perspective of what could be discovered through what is previously considered unknowable.
Oh, I got you. Sorry, sorry. I don't mean to cut everybody off. Uh, we got a few. We got like another minute. Is there anything else you guys want to say? I have to end the show here. I got a kid I got to put to bed.
Or, no, that's it. That's life is what you make it. That's be smart, be careful.
Yeah, I got you. And with that, we'll end the show. Let me see what's coming up. We won't do a show on the 18th. We'll have to do it like before schedule. So it'll be 2 weeks. So the 25th, we'll have another show. Uh, Unfortunately, due to financial stuff, I have to. And we'll be working an 80-hour week again. And we'll be back on the 25th, and we'll go from there.